We can't hear you, Peter. You're supposed to be the IT expert. Where's your microphone?
Oh,
There he is. How's it going?
good. How are y'all?
We're doing all right.
Now I gotta stay because you're here.
Uh-huh.
Are you like presenting something?
I am.
What are you presenting?
Uh, a gravity-fed drip irrigation system we built.
Hang on.
For your house?
Yeah, for my house.
Adam's not gonna be interested in that.
Yeah,
Unless it's all leafy greens. Then
Yeah, I need a commercial scale. Is it all is it AI? Tell me it has some kind of
gotta be
AI
AI in
feature.
there.
Sadly, no.
Well, you're not gonna fit in with this crowd anymore.
I know.
It's AI, it's not AI, it's out.
Sorry. Maybe I'll work it in soon.
Peter, are you so we'll start in like 5 minutes, but are you time constrained? Is it better if you go first or it doesn't matter?
I don't think so.
Alright.
I like your
The blurred background?
yeah, wherever you're at looks great.
I thought I didn't have blur on.
He's too cool for us. He's got the blur on. You don't want anybody knowing what's going on. We're all ladders and we're all drywall here, so
Yeah, I don't even know where the camera is. I'm looking at the screen. Like, I think this is the camera.
yeah, you got it. There you go.
Before it wasn't because I was looking at the screen, but I'm like, looks like I'm looking that way.
Oh, look at that. He's outside getting fresh air.
Oh, now I can see.
We can see in that. We got to do enhancement on his window. I feel like we can get some data out of there.
Mm.
Somewhere there. He's got a good webcam. Must be nice.
Yeah, or that I can.
We got it on a phone. I think the screen's only broken in one spot. It's pretty.
This isn't broken at all.
I gave him one, and then it was like totally destroyed, and like it's probably about a week. I think he totally smashed out. So then he had to buy one, and then he found out you couldn't get one at that time. So by the time he
The
finally got
back
one,
is broken. You
that still counts.
You can crack the back, I guess now. That's a new feature.
Glass all the way around. Oh,
Got heft. The glass gives it heft.
Yeah, is that it?
I don't know, maybe. They all feel about the same to me.
It's just stuff full of sawdust.
Yeah, if they could figure that out, how to keep sawdust out of like the charging port and underneath like screen protectors and cases.
I think you gotta put the phone somewhere else. Set in front of the saw, while you're cutting. That's the.
It never even really leaves the pocket.
It might not help either. It might be the problem. Pockets following the sawdust.
Yeah, that's true.
Drag it right in.
But yeah, dust proof is non-existent.
Adam's just here to make money, so don't mind him. He's not here, to consort with the others.
I came to check out the meeting.
No way.
And now I gotta stay because Peter's gonna give a presentation.
We might have John talk about ADSB because I have a feeling Peter might be interested in that. So I'd start with that, and then we'll do Peter, and then we'll do EJ in the middle. It'll be an AI sandwich, I think.
Okay.
And then and by AI sandwich I mean the AI cream in the center of the station. And then I'll talk about instruction.
Good luck.
Just crusty old shit on either end.
Yeah, crusty
Break the
shit.
sandwich.
Exactly. That's right. All right, let me go corral or riffraff because they're all down here hanging on the couch.
Yeah.
You got your slides ready?
Yeah.
You don't sound very confident. No, like I said, we'll do John,
I'm ready.
then Peter, then EJ. Yeah. See how it goes. Let me get the rest of the folks.
Well, here, we don't have to you put it right next to that.
All right, kids, get over there.
Early.
It's not early.
I got radio one day. It's
Peter's on the horn. You gonna say hi to Peter?
But you run up a bill?
He might be. I don't know.
Oh, was he the first presenter?
He's running up, not having to chase the kids at the moment. I think that's the main run. I'm just
They all need a.
Sure.
You been looking at flights? That's why you want to know where the airplanes are.
No, they just moved my flight. They're like,
10 years?
and it takes twice as long.
It's in the back.
No charge.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's helpful.
Like a
Forgot.
12 hour layover. It's like that's not.
Commercial air travel is just straight undignified. That is,
Now he's.
they're like precautions.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll never know. Might have
Gotta do this
like
like
it's.
it's, huh?
All right, yeah, you should be able to share. Oh, further ado. Only sharing your browser, where's the on that?
I know, right?
All right, take it away, Mr. John.
All right. My name is John. And I'm here to ask you, where are the airplanes? Or alternatively, hey, what is that noise? If you live in Madison, you have some idea of what I am referring to. This project combines my great love, is airplanes, with my great hatred, is computers. Computers, as you know, are a scourge on the earth. They never should have been invented, and we should throw them all into the sea. But I've spent a career working on them, so now I have some skills. It's like the Liam Neeson Taken thing. And so sometimes it's easier to solve your problem with computers than with other means. When I got my first job, it was for the Air Force, and they said, when we hire people to do flight tests here, there are two kinds of people, and we can always tell who's going to stay and who's going to leave. And that is the people who stay are the ones who look up whenever something flies over. And those who leave are the ones that don't look up when something passes. And I left anyway, even though I was part of the looking up crowd. So do whatever you want with that information. What is ADSB? It is an awkward acronym. But more concretely, it is a system for knowing where all of the aircraft are. This chart, of course, clear as mud, but for those who can't see it, basically the way ADSB works is airplanes emit a little signal that is machine readable about every half second or so. And it says, who are you and where are you? So GPS coordinates, including altitude. And you can hear that. You then have the ability to map where all these other things are relative to you if you also have some kind of way of locating yourself like GPS. There's some variations on this. There's some ground stations that can hear it, repeat it to each other. The radar at a place like Madison can feed into this system and broadcast up via ground stations. So anyone listening to this can get a sense of where are the planes. This gives you the ability to have something like this in your cockpit. You have an RV-15 shirt on, so I'll pick on you. What's that?
That looks like an EVIS of some sort.
It's a G1000, and that map is what?
That's your traffic. That's DSB probably. Well, it depends. That's how you have it connected.
Yeah. So this is showing you where all the other airplanes are relative to you. You're right in the middle of that. And here we've got a plane that is behind you at minus 1,300 feet. Not an issue, right? Here's one right in front of you, 500 feet below. Like, look out. That's maybe not ideal. This is so valuable that the FAA was able to get a bunch of curmudgeonly people who hate to spend money because the government said so by really expensive crap for their planes that emits this information, and often, like this one, can bring it in, read it, and make it available to you in the cockpit. That's kind of the reason that system exists. But because it exists as a byproduct, we get cool stuff. On the left is Flight Radar 24. You may have seen that website. On the right is FlightAware. So when you're tracking somebody's flight, and you're like, why are they delayed? You're like, oh, there were some storms. You can kind of see it here. The resolution was really bad. But this was a plane that flew in like, an hour or two ago to Madison and made like a 360 and came around like, what the hell's going on? So we get all this free because you can sit there and listen and write this information down and share it to websites and all sorts of other stuff. There is another website out there, though, that you may or may not use. It is called ADSB Exchange. This one is more fun, especially if you're of the DIY persuasion and kind of information likes to be free attitude. This one doesn't censor any of the data. So like we all know that it tracks Elon's plane and annoys him. If you file a request, you won't show up on Flight Radar 24 and some of these other platforms. This one is done by a bunch of people like me, putting ADSB antennas on the roof, feeding it into a central server and being fed back out. This is super fun. I want to do this. So how do you feed ADSB Exchange? The other reason I want to do it is these guys fly over us and they make a bunch of noise and I want to know where they are. Problem is,
Right over my house, man.
yeah, problem is they're stealth fighters. This makes them kind of tricky to find sometimes, but not totally impossible. So,
What?
What's that?
I said, wait, what?
Yeah, they have 35. Well, okay. It depends. If they don't want to be found, they won't be found.
Okay.
If you are in what we'll call peacetime, in a civilian area operating in a civil system, then they participate in that to certain degrees. But some aircraft don't share location with ADSB where they're just yelling, here's where I am, here's where I am. If you saw the crash in DC, in a year we'll get maybe the full story on it, but right now it looks like one of the contributing factors was that helicopter had its ADSB off. It was not saying where it is all the time. Now, DCA has radar. They can see that plane. The airliner may not have seen it. Like I said, we'll see in time what the real results of that are, but it matters. But there are other ways of locating airplanes. One is called TSB. This is a three-dimensional game of Marco Polo. TSB uses the radar at a place like Madison. So if you go out there and you're sitting at the terminal, you look left, there's a hill, big orange spinny dish on it, right? That's doing radar. The way the radar works, as it swings by, it will say, hit a target, right? That target, we now have azimuth for, right? We're trying to get 3 dimensions. We need distance. Distance is ping, pong, it's the time the radar comes back to me. So I get that. But I don't know how high you are because the way radar works is it actually just kind of emits a vertical line like this, swinging through your 360 degrees, right? So you'd be like ping, pong, ping, pong, ping, pong, ping, pong. But I don't know how high everyone is. But if when I hit you with the light, you were to yell back to me how tall you were, then we'd be able to map the top of everybody's head as we swing by. That's what a non-ADSB transponder does. And so you can do that. Then Madison knows all this information. They can feed it back out into the system for people that aren't constantly broadcasting their location. So that's one way of getting it. Another one is MLAT. This is triangulation. By show of hands, everybody triangulation? We're good on that? Cool. So you can triangulate stuff. You can also use more of those things if you say need to find them in 3 dimensions. You want a 4th one. Airplanes don't tend to be in the middle of the earth, so always need that. But not everything is precise. So the more locations you have, you can listen for that yelling of how tall something is, right? Or the altitude of the plane. And you go, I heard it now, then you heard it, then you heard it, so it's behind me. All right? What's up?
So if you are participating in this, I'm going to share my altitude with you. Why would I not also be on the ADSB?
It has to do with what hardware is in the plane.
So like older planes can tell you my altitude. I can tell you my altitude, but I can't tell you my GPS.
Yeah, so there's different requirements for different places for what kind of equipment you're going to have. Older ones tend to have just the where are you? And that would mean like you can't fly over LaGuardia with that. In fact, you don't have to have any of these at all. And that is something that pilots get a little complacent with. My partner, we fly together, and one of the things she knows to look for is like yellow J3 Piper Cubs from 1940. They have no electrical system. They're not talking on the radio. They're not broadcasting ADSB. You are looking for, it's not always yellow, but it's usually yellow. Some plane that's just out there in space. And like, if you're sitting there looking at this guy, that's a false sense of security, right? But there's a range of things out there. And
So just one rogue guy in a yellow plane, or
yeah, he's everywhere. And the other options like look around, but like, no, we like to, technology is fun. So let's do that. So this is where I asked Chris to cover his ears because I did not make all this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, this is
the frugal noises are about to intensify. Okay. So you want to put an antenna? Yeah. So you want to put an antenna like this on your roof. I didn't actually pick $100. You want to put an antenna like this on your roof. You want it on your roof because this works line of sight. You can't just put it in your bedroom unless you sleep outside or something. This is the antenna. Picks up 1090 megahertz. That's the frequency on which all this is broadcast. This is a little SDR software-defined radio receiver. It's going to take that, process it, turn it into something for USB. That goes into a Raspberry Pi. Nothing more than a computer. Costs about $15. And then we've got a battery, and we've got a solar panel. We've got an enclosure. Close all that up, slap it on your roof, and there happens to be a radio mast up there on mine, on top of my building. So, ask forgiveness, not permission. There was a hatch in my stairwell. We went up there, put that thing on there. Life is good. We get some data. I didn't actually buy the solar kit with enclosure. Work bought that.
Put a
And
little sticker on it that says
I'm testing it.
warning, safety critical device, do not disturb. That's
Hey.
really the real trick.
We're not touch the
Tartar,
sign
yeah,
connecting it.
tartar.
In undergrad, I put this was back when Wi-Fi was rare. I put Wi-Fi in my dorm room, but I just labeled it the room above. They came looking for it several times. I ended up dating the girl that lived in that room. She eventually found out that I was the source of this all along. They kept looking.
That's nice, Bree.
So speaking of networking, problem is this thing is too far from my unit. The radio mast is like in the middle of the building, I live on the end, no good, right? The solution to this is obviously to use your neighbor's Wi-Fi, which you may or may not already have the password to. I think we all have one or two of those saved in our computer. New problem. ADSB Exchange will give me access to a bunch of data because I am feeding the system. They will also give me the ad-free version, as if I weren't already blocking all the ads. And I want to be able to SSH access into this, but now it's on a different network than my own. So I set up a VPN at my house, Raspberry Pi, when it wakes up, connects to my neighbor's Wi-Fi, and then VPNs out of that Wi-Fi back into my house so that I can access it. Probably how to set one of these up is another talk. What do you know? We get ADSB data. This is lovely. These are all the planes that we could see from my house the day I set it up. Even better, we get the multilateration data. And the multilateration data is important because if you've got an F-35 up there going 3,500 feet, 3,500 feet, you're like, where are you? That's all I can hear. You're not giving me the location. Where are you? If you and all your friends get together and multilaterate this thing, you can find it. And that's what I really want better coverage for, because you look at this and you go like, John, why do you need this on your roof? This already exists, right? But the coverage for multilateration, not super. That's what I really want. So we've got multilateration working, and you can see here, they fudge your location, but this is me, and these are all the ones I'm connected to. It goes all the way down to Chicagoland. You got all these peers that you're trying to do math for fun profits.
So that antenna is connecting to all those points?
So via the internet, right? The way this thing works is line of sight. So what you see on the left is the radio mast, and what you see on the right, I've got a clear view out over Lake Monona from my roof, so I can see way far out in that direction. But I got a church over in the background of that frame. There's some chimneys there, and all this is kind of low right now because I kind of expected it not to work on the first try, and I'm gonna have to go in there and futz with stuff, and I don't want to climb up that rusty radio mast too many times. On the right, you see a game of pickup sticks. That's not related to the talk. What it is all the tracks from the last 8 hours. So you can see kind of what they call a manifold of all the spots that you can go. You can see kind of an outline of it here. But this is what you can see. I want to improve the line of sight of it. So just in review here, the solar and battery sized pretty big for a little device like that. So it should be about as reliable as the sun. If it's really cloudy for lots of days, we won't get stuff. But like, does it work? No. We have no nines of reliability for reasons I will cover in a bit here. Even when the sun is shining, no nines. No nines. But do we know why that is? We do not. I have sent a message to the sector chat, and I have not followed through with my homework on that to figure out why it is shutting off from time to time. If anyone wants to hazard a guess, we can do that later. But do we have MLAT of F-35s? We do not. Do we know why we are not getting MLAT of F-35s? We do not. I am getting MLAT data. In fact, right before this talk, I went out and found this little guy. This little guy is a Cessna 172 puttering around. That's Lake Koshkino. And we're getting MLAT for that one, which we can tell. It's indicated here in yellow. Life is good, so it's working. I don't know why it's not doing this. I have kind of a suspicion that there's not a dense enough network in the vicinity of them. But there's a lot of these feeders out here that are doing it. I don't know. I want to figure out what's up with that. But did we do hard DIY things? Like, not really. Like, I bought some stuff and I bolted it to my roof. I did some configuration on my computers. I set up some networking. But I get to see where the airplanes are, and this makes me very happy. And it's kind of the start of the project. So the feed is online. I don't know why you would want to see just my feed. Go right to the main website. That'll show you everyone's feed. When you see the F-35s or you hear them or you're wondering what's going on, what was that plane? This website is really, really good for that. And if I'm on my VPN, I can even get to it locally. You get something like this. So you can pull it up and see in real time. This is what's going on.
And the plane style is set by the plane response or the plane, like the identifiers getting transmitted from it.
Yeah, so you're seeing here, these are like, normal airliners. This is a little Cessna guy here. See if we have anything fun.
Then the altitude, the colors.
Where are you looking?
Or a helicopter there in the center.
Helicopter.
That's a regular helicopter. That is one of the UW hospital light flights. They have really cool tail numbers. They have 608 uniform whiskey, which is a good one. 911 uniform whiskey, and so next steps. I got to figure out why it keeps turning off for no reason whatsoever. I got to figure out why MLAT isn't happening all the time. Move the antenna up the stick. Once I figure that out, duplicate it and get another one out here. So hopefully I have more multilateration friends, since between my house and here, you have a pretty good vantage on where the F-35s come in and do their overhead brake to land. And last, I want to put low rod radios up there, which again, talk for another time. But if I have a solar powered weatherproof enclosure with great line of sight, and there are all kinds of fun things you can put in there. So with that, any questions?
Does ADSB give direction and speed, or do you establish tracks off of the GPS data?
So what's the site you look at? Generally, you're going to get what fields come off of it. There are a lot of them that will just interpolate it from the track, but you can also report all kinds of stuff via ADSB. Most airplanes don't. So you can do things like say, what is your barometric altitude? Very different than your GPS altitude. You can talk about, I'd have to go pull up the list of all the fields. So there are a bunch that can be populated. You can also infer them. But if you do multilateration, definitionally you're inferring them. The other thing that's interesting is speeds for airplanes. There's like 8 of them, right? Indicated airspeed and ground speed are totally different, right? Are you going into a headwind? So a bunch of stuff out there. There's also like, what heading are you like crossing the ground at, or what course you're doing, and what heading does the airplane have? Like, are you kind of grabbing into the wind? So you can get some of that. In general, I haven't seen a bunch.
Does the MLAT stuff assume an omnidirectional antenna on the transmitter?
Yeah. And you don't need to be picking up power. You're doing it on timing.
Right, but you could also, if you had a phased array, you could do a beam with a time delay that go through with. I'm wondering what the F-35s could do to make where they could play nice, but not give away the position through that process.
Yeah, I mean,
because theoretically, right, with a phased array, they could beam it to, and then do an offset timing in different
send it just back to the radar station.
Well, or send a time delay version in different directions.
Send like
Which
three
would-
different copies, three different
which would
directions.
foil your-
Yeah, they're not
They don't see.
trying to be untracked. It's just kind of like the one flying through DC wasn't like, haha, we're top secret now. We turned our transponder off. It was kind of like probably just operational, like, oh yeah, we turn it off as a matter of course because it's the thing we want to be used to. But they're not like going into a bottom bed to get Osama bin Laden, right? They're like flying past DCA. So I think they had their mode S transponder on. I think they more or less have to. I don't know if the same rules apply to them. But any of us, if we were flying into DCA airspace, you do have to have transponder.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think about what all the horrible things you could do with a software-defined radio and a directional antenna in an airspace to spoof.
Yeah,
Lots and lots of things.
yeah. So here's the start of a nightmare. All of this data, totally out of the open, totally unencrypted, not even graphically authenticated. You can simulate anything you want. GPS also perfectly jammable, and we can spoof a location to view the would-be honest player in this game. And also, all the radios work that way, and the instrument landing system works that way. Totally out in the open. You can really mess things up with no equipment, like cheap stuff. It's a very bad time. In fact, the simplest denial of service attack is stuck mic, and it happens not infrequently, including there were announcements last year at Oshkosh for like 2 hours, like, please get off the airboss frequency. You are ruining the air show for everyone. Check your, like, if you are you sitting on your thing, and like you're just making this to 10,000 people. All of them have these handhelds. Really easy to mess this stuff up.
Peter, do you have something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the whole point of transmitting, like they could just turn it off, but the point of transmitting is that they don't want to get hit or hit stuff. They want to participate in the civil system. So
They're also lazy watching a little thing on display, so they don't want to have to watch.
They actually have a radar. They can see you.
this.
Although there's some limitations on that.
Is there a former this software that can track drones that are up in the air?
So it depends on the drone. Not all of them have ADSB, but if you have like a big honking one that gets way up there,
Like the ones that were flying over Jersey? Like
not going
I
there.
never saw any maps that looked like that. That's,
Yeah.
all I saw was shaky footage
Those-
cam from like the backyard.
Those are
man.
airplanes flying.
Yeah, I'm not going there, but Chris will set you straight on that later. But yeah, big ones, especially ones that are going to share the airspace. And it depends on where you want to operate it. There are cases where you're required
But I
to.
mean, like it's like a regular like Mavic Pro or something. I know that's still a
If you
video.
have one of these little things,
Yeah, it's
no, they don't have
well, it's
ADSB.
emitting a signal. It's just not a signal that's gonna show
Yeah,
up.
the remote control link is supposed to identify who's flying. The FAA, you're supposed to encode your thing into that, but that is nothing to do with this.
Okay, I thought FAA could like read that.
They can, yes, but that's not this. That's a guy on the ground with a radio going, the fuck is figured out. But it's
Yeah,
not,
if you're-
yeah,
Is that why you got your radio?
no, that's for later now.
Hey Chris, were you using ADSB for Apollo 67?
Not that I know of. We had a radar reflector on. But I,
Yeah, we were also transmitting something.
so.
Yeah, we were.
Were? Oh, yeah.
APRS. APRS, that's what it was.
Oh, yeah, that's unrelated, sorry, yeah.
It's a different.
That's amateur
That's
pilots.
it's a ham radio
It's just an established,
network.
yeah, it's like a text messaging for nerds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like flying spooks.
So, John, were you saying? So I can definitely see F-35s on ADSB exchange. Are there cases where you're not seeing them which is why you're chasing after
Yeah.
on that stuff?
So it's been getting a little bit better in the last 6 months. Right now, when I see them on ADSB Exchange, they come in via TSB, which is that shining the light around and they're saying where they are. And that's because Madison's picking them up.
Right.
I don't know what their operating procedure renders, but like when you put the landing gear down, those things are super visible to a radar. If you're trying to be super sneaky, they're not until you're hurt. I mean, radar works with cube of distance, so when you get real close, you can see stuff, but the whole point is you're long gone if you're being stealth bombed. So I'm seeing them on TSB, but I get them north, I think part of what I'm not getting is. So there are areas around here where it just kind of cut out for a while, and then you'll see it kind of chop in. The other thing I'm not seeing is other aircraft in flight. And I suspect they simply just have transponders off, which is not unusual for formations. That one I'm gonna have a very hard time since I start getting into much fancier equipment like radar to see. But I kind of bummed because there were a lot of them where I'm like, okay, it's over here, I can see it. And now I'm beginning to think it's more the latter. 6 months ago, though, the TSB data was pretty bad. So I don't know what's changed. Yeah.
So the Ukrainians built a microphone network to triangulate. Is anybody playing with that?
Not that I know of, but
There's a company in Chicago that's using it for
spot pattern.
for shootings.
Yeah.
I know the guy that makes that technology. Yeah, they're using that. They got microphones everywhere. They're using it to triangulate shooting.
Yeah, I wonder how well that would work because they make a non-uniform, like, sound depending on how they're pointing towards you. But
The echo too. Yeah. That's gonna be-
Any other questions for John? All right, thank you. Peter, you're up.
All right, let me get my thing set up here. All right. Can you all see an image?
Oh yeah, about me. My God, you're
All right.
syndrome.
I'll get started before the heckling. So hello everyone. I'm coming to you from Portland. My name is Peter Navaje.
Portland, Oregon, or Maine?
Good question. Portland, Oregon. Yeah. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, and I spent my childhood in Madison. I spent a ton of time at Sector in my late teens and early 20s before I moved to Washington. I'm currently a software engineer at Reddit, and I work on a platform safety there. But I'm not presenting on behalf of them. I'm just here. Well, you'll see. This doesn't have anything to do with Reddit. I have 2 kids. The older one is named Nina, and she's 2.5 and very fast. And the younger one is Zoya, and she's 3 months, and she's not as fast. And I just bought a house and moved to Portland because my in-laws live here, and raising kids is very challenging. Raising 2 kids is even more challenging. And the kids and move will become more important later. And so you may think that the Pacific Northwest is a very wet place. It is, with a caveat. In fact, I took this video in the North Cascades on June 20th, 2019. It was pretty wet that day. But it's only really wet in the winter. In the summer, it's more like, just kidding. It's actually wonderful out here during the summer, but it doesn't rain that much. Compared to Madison, we get almost no rain in the summer. You can see like 1/2 inch in July and August, compared with 4.5 in Madison. Yeah, it's pretty dry. It's common to go a month or more without any precipitation whatsoever, which is nice to be in, although it does get quite hot. But this is what my first water bill in Portland. It's $567 if you can see the balance at the bottom.
Oh,
That's for
6 months.
That's for 3 months. So it's around $200 a month. So
on your water bottles or something?
yeah. So the budget for this project was pretty high. What did someone said something?
Oh, you gotta get a long hose.
Yeah. Yep.
Water.
Yes. Or a very large tank. Yeah. So thankfully, to stave off heckling, the budget is pretty high for this project. And yeah, this is from the winter months. So this is not the summer. There's no garden watering involved in this bill. I think the main expense here is that there are 3 of us really taking baths and showers. Our kid takes a bath every night to like as part of the bedtime routine to get calmed down. I called the city. They told me this is pretty typical. Uh, so, and it's only going to get more expensive. They're increasing the costs for water. So this is only a sneak peek of my bills in the future.
Is it just those? So it says stormwater. So are you seeing a bunch of impervious surface charge on your house roof, things like that, or not so much?
No, this is just they call it stormwater, but it's like when you can get rebates for trapping stormwater, but really they're just charging you for the volume that you consume because they assume it's going to come back out through the sewer. But sneak peek, spoiler, it's not. So I'm going to show you a series of images, and I think a lot of you will understand everything right away, but afterward I'll explain it and talk about it. Really big syringe. So you can see there's some drawing on the tub. That's actually plastic transfer. My kid was like hitting the tub with a piece of plastic. Anyway, owning a home with children.
Not running back through the window.
So poor babe. Nice. No bleach in the bathtub then, I have to understand.
Trump says. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to go there. So yeah, it's all gravity fed. There's no pump. Basically, it's just a siphon that draws water into the system. There's a 13-foot drop, and it's all once it's down from the tub, the water is drawn, it's sucked down, and then fed into a drip irrigation system. And given that it's a 13-foot drop, it's probably running around 5.5 psi, but I really have no way to know for sure. I'm using a 3/8 inch silicone tube to feed water into the system. Silicone's nice because it's pretty UV resistant and very flexible. It doesn't like to kink, and if it does kink, it's not permanently kinked. And the rest of the system's 1/4 inch inner diameter or 1/4 inch outer diameter drip line. More on that later. And a tea strainer removes like any debris from the shower that would clog the filter. And it waters 32 plants, around 32 plants. Should have added some like rounding buffer there, but a lot of peas, tomatoes, berry bushes. We planted some berry bushes this year and we need to keep them watered so they don't die because it's really dry, etc. And I could water a bunch more plants, but the tree is consuming a lot. Once it's established, I won't need to give it as much, so we can grow way more vegetables. And right now it empties a typical shower in around 15 minutes. It's kind of a trade-off. If you have it drained more slowly, then it's much harder to start the pump, or the siphon rather. So it's kind of a trade-off. But it works pretty well. It hasn't gotten clogged yet, but I've only been running it for a few weeks, so we'll find out more. So
Are you starting the siphon with the syringe to pump the?
Exactly. And again, it's a giant syringe. It takes most of that syringe to start. Like the last 100 or so, or 50 or so cc's, you can test it'll start sucking the plunger, so you can see that the siphon started. Yeah. Yeah. So onto the challenges. So this kind of like it grew organically. At first it was like, I could siphon this out of the bathtub and do something with it. And then I was very resistant to building a drip irrigation system at first. I just thought it'd be a huge pain in the butt, be too expensive. I didn't really want to spend the time. I didn't have the time to spend. I thought it would get clogged all the time. And so I started really small. I bought like a couple emitters. I was continually frustrated that it was working really, really well. I found a lot of emitters worked fine with this pressure. And like I'm not trying for perfection. Like it's not like 1,000 plants. It's not industrial scale. So if something doesn't get watered, I just see that it's wilting and water it. But yeah, it worked really well. I was seeing that emitters were getting, I had these sprinkler emitters, which like shoot on the tree. That's what I started out with. And they were getting clogged almost instantly, really, really quickly. So I had to add this tea strainer. That was a McMaster special. Yeah, so I just kind of iterated on this idea. And all of a sudden I ended up with drip irrigation for my whole garden. The tea strainer requires periodic maintenance. I've been seeing around a week. It gets kind of like gummed up and I have to blow it out with a hose. But I accidentally bought the smallest version of this tea strainer from McMaster. It turns out there's like a much taller version, which I think would probably last. You could maintain it less. And flow was like it was like a Goldilocks thing. I started with 1/4 inch just to try it, see does this work? Like, is it easy to start the siphon? Is a huge pain. And that was super easy to start. You could use like I think I was started with a 300 cc syringe. But then it's just not enough flow to like run everything. So I bumped up to 3/8, or sorry, I bumped up to 1/2, but then it was like impossible to start the siphon. So I came back to 3/8, which worked well. And then like connectors all have smaller internal diameters. So there's a lot of like goofy, like you can see this setup is because I want to maintain flow to all these branches at certain rates. And connectors, let's see, Amazon listings for connectors are all just like garbage. Sometimes it's just random what's what. And yeah, McMaster car is great, but it's expensive and it takes longer. You can't just like be laying with your kid in bed and fire off a one-click order as you have time. And also drip irrigation has a pretty steep learning curve. Like I didn't really expect this, but like first of all, the like finding the right emitters is weird. Like I wasn't really clear on how the emitters worked at first, all of them, and like you kind of like buy them to try them, and they're cheap. Luckily, everything's pretty cheap, and you can like eventually you'll kind of like end up using everything in one way or another. But and then drip irrigation uses outer diameter tube measurements. I have no idea why. It's very like to me that's very bizarre. Why would you do that? But yeah, it makes the math harder. And then like the fittings are all goofy, going from inner diameter to outer diameter. And then like some emitters are just kind of like crappy. Like some brands, I guess, are just bad. You kind of I found this out iteratively, of course. And some manufacturers don't seem to list whether emitters are pressure compensating or not. Rainbird seems to be like the best one. They don't clog as fast, and they seem to. I think most of them are pressure compensating. There's like two different styles that I have in my system right now. One of them is this style where it's like this. You can see that bulge on the pipe. That's one style, and then I have this style this is not pressure compensating. This is like the tube has an integrated emitter. So those are kind of two different styles. They can be good for different things. But yeah, kind of like again, like manufacturers don't list this stuff, so you kind of have to like buy the stuff and like mess around with it to see if it works, which is annoying. Or I don't know. It was kind of fun, I'll be honest. And some challenges that I anticipate. I am really I don't know if the emitters will stay free of debris. Some of them are already like gummed up. There's a rain bird and rain drip. Man, I can't remember which is which. One is bad. One is gummed up already, even with the mesh. Others aren't. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a completely green. Oops, oh no, a completely green tube at some point, and I'll have to like bleach the whole system. It'll be great. See if I can find the zoom window. Oh, it's all gone wrong.
Oh, now you're muted.
Muted.
Unmute. Unmute. Oh my god.
Oh, my Google account got logged
Hi,
out.
man.
This is awesome.
Sorry. So who do we complain to at Reddit about this presentation? We
Good
gotta
question.
give somebody at Reddit to complain. I think that's what that first slide says.
Fez, the CEO. Just that was the end of my presentation. Yeah. Any questions?
It's a soft crowd. It's a soft crowd.
So do you have to tell the kids to not pee in the tub, or is it diluted enough that it's fine?
It's good fertilizer.
It's good fertilizer. I don't really worry about it. I was gonna have a warning at the beginning of this, like it's kind of gross. But parent, you're kind of like, I don't know. My kid poops their pants all the time. I have a high tolerance, so I kind of don't really but much.
Clearly, City of Portland, what's their tolerance? Do they got
Portland, man, keep it weird. I don't know.
It's gray water. It should be fine.
a lot? It depends. I mean, a lot of communities have code for gray water irrigation.
Yeah, I was actually looking here. I was just looking up today, and it appears to be okay. If you were to use it for indoor, certainly have to be treated. But if it stays outside, they're less concerned.
You guys can say, think about a septic tank. I mean, that's the thing I was gonna say is, I grew up in the country. You have a septic tank. All your shit goes into your front yard.
Oh no, see, it's not something. Cities would have a problem, but it depends. I mean, wasn't Oregon where the guy got arrested for collecting rainwater? This is old. I remember reading about it, but it was a huge scandal that he found out the hard way that you didn't own the rain that landed on your
Well, as long, if you put that into the sewer system, that's the problem. Just like Peter's saying, they can't meter the sewer, they can only meter your intake. So the only way they can charge you for the sewer is by charging by assuming everything that's coming into the house is the house the same.
So you can't take the rainwater and pour it into the sewer.
Because now you're overtaxing the sewer system on water that you didn't pay.
Oh yeah, no,
That's why. So it shouldn't be a problem. It's not rainwater as long as you don't get back on.
yeah, this was years ago, and I don't know if it was.
Either is Portland a combined sewer system or is it separate?
I'm almost positive. I'm almost certain that it's a combined sewer system. I looked this up a while ago, and I'm almost certain that's the case. I will say they offer, as I mentioned in the beginning, they offer rebates on your water bill for collecting and disposing of rainwater on your property. So it's definitely not illegal to collect rainwater. In fact, you can get rewarded for it, but yeah.
So there's a whole community of like-minded people like these that I don't know if you're gonna stop here to the bathtub, but you should look into like the back of your toilet sink. So you wash your hands, you fill this toilet, or you can, if you plumb your sink in a way, you can tap into the side of your toilet. So every time you use your bathroom sink, it refills your toilet with an overflow that goes. So you can. There's so much to this redundancy that who cares if the water you use to brush your teeth, why doesn't it just flush your toilet?
Right. Yeah.
You waste so much water not thinking actually. It's because we don't have $200 a month bills. Like if more people had the bills, like more people sink into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the bill is it's pretty cool. It sucks to get such a big bill, but then your budget for the project is huge. Like the amortized cost of your system, or like the, like everything I've done, I've probably spent like $200 in drip irrigation crap, but because I didn't know what to get and all this, but like that's a month's worth of water, it's yeah. So
Is there a reason, I mean, aside from simplicity, is there a reason to not pump the water into a reservoir and then use the reservoir to, because then you can pump the water through a fine mesh filter, right? You got potential to drive it into, fill up a tank and then drain out of the tank slowly to irrigate.
basically I just wanted to avoid the use of a pump. And I figured I could do that by just sizing the components correctly. Like, I didn't actually say this out loud, but it was written on one of the slides. Like this T strainer is sized larger, like the fittings are all sized larger than the flow. And actually like the tube is oversized. Everything's kind of oversized. So like I could be running more plants. It's just then I wouldn't be watering effectively. So, yeah, it was kind of the goal of the project was to do it as like dead simple as possible. And the other thing is like if you have a pump, then you like have to do wiring and there's like electricity outside. It's like just becomes a big which I don't have time for. So
No, it makes sense. The only thing that helps you with is the filtration, but that's literally it. There's everything else is pain in the ass with it.
yeah, I think yeah, we'll see how the filtration works.
If you drain into a rain barrel, the other nice thing is you get a settling, you can settle it.
Yeah, you can settle or float out solids or whatever's that helps too. Any other questions for Peter?
You said that the last bill didn't include any gardening. So is your goal to reduce your consumption or just not increase it now that you're reusing this water?
So not increase it during the summer months. It does make you much more cognizant of your water usage when it's like filling up around your ankles. Though I will say so. It I think has the effect of actually lowering the bill also.
Any other questions, anybody? All right. Thank you, Peter. Good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me present.
EJ's got your AI model coming up next, so we'll see.
I'm on.
Yep, you're up.
Share this.
You want to stay there?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay here because I'm gonna be typing.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm just gonna hand the mic over to this.
All right.
Internet in here. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Take it away.
That was since I was sitting.
Ah, too bad.
Hi, everyone. I'm EJ, and you've all probably heard me talk, or most of you have heard me talk. I usually talk about language, and I often kind of rail against language. And tonight I'm hoping to set the record straight about what I actually mean. Because what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation in English. We will talk about something with this, and then we'll turn it into a spreadsheet. And whatever we've talked about, any of the words that we've used in discussing whatever we're discussing, will be in that spreadsheet. And then we can actually change the spreadsheet, extend the idea, modify it, and then extract it back out and put it back in here and keep talking about it. In fact, we could use a different conversation, we could use a different model, which basically means that spreadsheet is effectively like a synopsis of what we talked about. It wouldn't have the transcript, it wouldn't have all the dialogue that goes into the decision, but any of the conclusions that we've reached, that's what goes in the spreadsheet. So we'll have the transcript of this meeting, for example. But then we'll also have this. So the first thing I need is a topic. I need somebody to suggest some kind of topic. It could be a business, it could be a
Abraham Lincoln.
airplanes.
Airplanes.
Come on. John.
Right here. I'll give it a chance.
Could be in there.
Why is it this last try?
Exactly.
Using ASB,
ADSB.
ADS.
One people in that surveillance process.
So at the moment, I'm starting pretty broad. I'm just saying, give me something. And this gives me a description. Now, typically, if I'm writing software, this is the kind of thing we'd start with. we'd read it, we'd see what it's gonna say, and then we go and build it. And in this case, let's come back to what it actually says in just a sec. Because one of the things that I want to highlight here is that what we're talking about is going to keep moving. Like right now, it's here in this conversation, and then we're going to pull it out of here and put it in a JSON file. And then we're going to push it from the JSON file into an Excel spreadsheet and change it, and then pull it back out as Excel and push it into a different language model. And the same idea is going to keep evolving and changing. That's basically the whole point, is that the idea isn't tied to language. We can put it in many, many, many different formats without losing the like concept, like model of whatever it is we're talking about. So in this case, it's ADSB, automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts. That sounds about right. It's got planes and so on. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to upload a file that tells it how to do it. Training doc, and I'm going to say, please describe this as a CCC JSON with a cell. And so all it's going to do is take whatever it wrote, which I haven't read yet, so I don't know precisely what it said yet, but it's going to express it in a very, very precise way. So it's got aircraft with different parts of the aircraft, and John, you'll be in a better position to decide if this is reasonable, if these are reasonable aircraft things. So this sort of looks like it's just one reading. Is that right? This would be like one ping would let me, I can all that stuff.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. Yeah, that's what we're going for. At the moment, we're like 10 seconds into this, so we're going for give or take. But this isn't quite what we want, because we really want stations, and we want aircraft, and we want data, and we want time. So I can say, let's add in all the infrastructure for stations, for what are they called? Listening stations.
Sure.
Listening stations. I'll stop right here. I have to use language to talk to this model. I have to communicate in English. We have to communicate in English. English is absolutely essential. It just doesn't have to define the formal description of what it is necessary. So I'm telling it to add some things. I'm calling it listening stations, which means it is going to be listening stations until we change it to something else. But I've now made that decision. That's part of what this process is making decisions, listening stations, and collecting data, broadcast, sharing it. So it's going to expand what we're doing a little bit. We now have some stations. Each one has an ID and name, who's operating it. So that would be you, John. You'd have some other people in your network that would be able to put in their information, where they are, their elevation, the hardware they're using, that kind of thing. And then we have messages. These look like reasonable attributes for a message, things like the station ID, where the message came from, type of message, and then whether the station is online, looks up whether the station is currently online. And then these are uploads. So it's flushing out what it is that we're dealing with. But at the moment, it still doesn't have any data. All the data for each of these things is empty. So I can just tell it, let's create some test data. Let's create some test data. And what it should do now is just stick test data into everything that it's created. Again, this isn't meant to be the final thing. This is just a back of a napkin sketch that if this is a project we were working on, that we'd all be able to look at and say, yeah, that looks like what we want. Oh, let's also keep track of what color the plane is, or what color we want to display it as, or the different models of the plane and how we want to display them, and the icons that we want to use to position on the maps per kind of plane. And all that will just build sort of on top of what we're doing here. This decided to give it to me tabular data. I'm going to take this last JSON that it had, just say, please add it. So while this is doing this, I'll explain what we're going to do next. Once it gets the final JSON, I'm going to take that JSON thing that it's put together that we've sort of glanced through. It'll have some of this data in here. So let's give it this. This. Yeah. So here's the aircraft data. It's got some information about the stations. This is just the data and not the schema. So you do have to pay attention to what it's doing because this left out half the puzzle. Let's just try this one more time. These add simple data. Here in the chat. On. This is what it's like working with an AI. And to just try things. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. So now we have stations and we have some actual stations. Oh, look at that. Called it EJ North Tower.
You get a South Ridge and a North Tower now. Congrats, sir.
And then it's got some messages and some examples of those.
More interesting to see where it puts you. You know, where does it think EJ is?
Timbuktu.
Probably.
Probably. And then it's gonna have some aircraft down at the bottom. So essentially, this is the same content that was in that conversation that we were having, except now it's in a machine readable format, which means that I can come over to this Sector67 JSON. And at the moment, it's an empty JSON. I'm just going to paste it in here. And with this website, right now, the JSON is the most up-to-date version. But I can push it into Excel, and then we'll be able to open it and look at it in Excel, and then pull it back into JSON. So I'm going to put push. It's like a Git push, except it's the ideas rather than the text, because the text was English to begin with. It's now JSON. It's going into Excel. There's no language. That's why I don't like language, because, or why I say that I don't think language is good for us to put information, because now this information is in Excel, and if we open it up here, Sector67, SOLS.
It gave you a warning when I put the virtual weapon.
Suta or
When I pushed over. You tried pushing.
I went too far. I flew too close to the sun. Oh wait, maybe I'm not. I stopped. Not push.
Sorry, something.
So it doesn't like this formula. For the moment, I am going to just go remove that formula. In the interest of time. Great. Patience help. This doesn't work. I'm just going to describe what we have in here. It's Edward. Okay. I'm going to go a different way. I have this up. Let me see if that's helping. Okay. So here's what should have happened. That whole thing that we talked about with ChatGPT, we should have been able to just inject into Excel and then opened up in Excel. We would have had the aircraft and the stations and the measurements, and so on. So for example, per station, you'd have multiple measurements that all talk about the same station, and all have the same idea of that station. And every time a new measurement comes in, it just gets added to that row. Literally, that spreadsheet could be the thing. We could stick a REST API in front of it, and whenever one of those stations checks in, it would simply submit its data to that, and you could stick it in at the end of that spreadsheet. And then that spreadsheet has the station and can simply average or count or sum or do anything it needs with that particular data. And then similarly, it can count where it is and calculate how far away it is from a particular point. And could, for example, aggregate for downtown, how many planes are within a certain radius. This is all just Excel. It's used Excel. We can just literally model whatever it is we're trying to figure out in Excel. And then, just like it didn't work, but if it had worked, just like we pushed to Excel, we could then pull it back out to JSON. And then we could give that JSON file to any LLM and ask it questions about our idea. How many planes are near Madison? And it would be able to tell us. And we could say, how did you figure that out? And it would be able to say, well, here are all the measurements, and here are the GPS coordinates, and I used this formula to calculate how far they were from this particular geolocation, which is Madison, and the sum of those over this period of time is that. It can explain exactly what it is that leads to that conclusion. The problem with most AI at the moment is that it's probabilistic. When you ask it questions like that, even if it has access to sort of the correct information, it's just sort of guessing what the next best word is. And if you give it enough data and it has enough training and therefore can correctly pick what the best next word is in a particular situation, it will do that. This makes it completely 100% yes, where you're having a conversation with it about how you want the spreadsheet to. And then all the rules are in the spreadsheet. The AI can move away. It can disappear. It can no longer be a thing. It doesn't actually need to keep getting better. They keep talking about trying to make them better. We don't need to make them better. They're already plenty smart. We just need to actually model the things that we're talking about, use them to help us build this kind of model. Because then once you have it in that JSON file, first of all, you can go back to other agents, human and AI can look at it. It becomes auditable because it's just a text file. So it goes into JSON. That JSON goes into Git, and it can tell you specifically not the code that changed how it calculated that distance, but the actual rule, the formula that figures out how far away one of those planes is from downtown becomes a formula that gets checked in as a diff. So it's like Git, but for the business rules themselves. And then with that, what I've spent the last 20 years with Richard Weber, Ted Ritchie was with me, raving all about it, is that JSON file can then be fed through reusable tools to create any code, any language, hardware, testable, backend, front-end, documentation, because it's complete. It is sort of definitionally complete. If you can pick up that one file, drop it into an LLM and ask them any question, they can answer it accurately and explain why it's the correct answer. It sort of defines that the idea is in that one file. It's not English, it's not Spanish, it's not French, it's a spreadsheet. It's literally a spreadsheet. If you open it up in French, even the formulas will turn into French formulas. You'll see the French version of those formulas. So anyway, that's my it would have been this worked. But it should go round trip from an LLM to JSON to Excel, back to JSON, back to an LLM to Postgres, back to JSON. The idea should be able to move, not get locked up in first English and code, more English. So that's what I got.
So is this working
questions?
Is this right? Was it working before?
It was. I shot for the moon, going for the planes. There were a bunch of complex formulas in there. I was using Sector and tools and methods on that previous demo, which was just a slightly less complex.
That tool you're using is called Effortless Explorer. Is that something you wrote, or is that something that's out on the internet somewhere? What is that thing?
Yeah. So this is my stuff. This is my tech. So it's been at a command line for most of the time. Now it's just a website, and so you'll be able to, it's basically gonna be an AI. You'll be able to chat with it like you can, you'll just be talking to OpenAI or Rocket or whatever. But it will be going through our website, and the conversation you'll be having is about that spreadsheet. So when you ask it a question, it will basically be able to tweak the model, turn it into a spreadsheet, go look at what the actual answer is, deterministic, and come back and describe the spreadsheet rather than imagining, well, it seems like there is an is cutoff thing, so that must mean X, Y, Z. Just it'll happily just spin anything you want off the top of its head. This constrains it where you're asking it to describe something that's right in front of it, and multiple agents can all vet the same thing and make sure that what it says is the correct thing. It defines correctness, it's usually just absent. In most AI generated content, the spec is generated by an AI, and the code is generated by an AI, and the tests are generated by an AI, and the docs say something different. And so if you bring in another AI that's gonna like make sure everything's correct, what does it look at? And I'll say something different. That's the whole problem. This creates a single spreadsheet where if you want to know how it calculates how far away a plane is from downtown Madison, find that cell, you double click on it, you look at the plane. That's how this guy. So
Is it the nature of it being trained on JSON format? What you think improves its reliability?
not,
Ultimately, it's still tokenizing.
it has very, very little to do with training. Where in training, with a large language model, its training dictates how good an answer it gives to your questions. If you ask somebody, imagine that there was a single spreadsheet that defined all of Facebook, like all of Facebook, users, posts, likes, articles, everything in one enormous spreadsheet. And then you said, how do you know if a user is active? A person doesn't need to be trained on Facebook. They need to go to the users tab. They need to go to the is active tab. They need to look at the funding. If it says they're active, if they don't have more than 3 of XYZ against them, then that's the answer. And if you want to know what X or Y or Z is, you go find those things and you go click on the cell and you look at it. And it can explain itself all the way down to the underlying fact. They paid their bill, don't have a past due balance, they don't have any demerits, therefore. But whatever those rules are, at any given moment in time, Excel never shows you a list of numbers and then a total where the total is not. That just doesn't happen. Because the rule is whatever these numbers are, the total goes down. You change number, and that permeates the whole spreadsheet. That's why you can model such enormously complex things in Excel. This just recognizes that. So I have a conjecture, I probably mentioned it last time I talked. It basically claims in the simplest form that we can model any idea without language. And at this point, I can just say, if my conjecture holds, it means that we can take any idea and push it into Excel. Maybe not the first time in a live demo, but in theory, there is nothing that can't fit in and then be edited and then come back out with no loss of fidelity about what it is that's being. If the conjecture holds, if it doesn't, somebody just needs to find one sentence, any idea in any language about any topic from quantum mechanics down to sewing. Doesn't matter. If it can't be put into Excel, and it can be said in English meaningfully, you will have falsified it. The spelling count. No, explicitly not. Really? No, that's
Figured that's.
the words themselves. I have an Airtable we have sent out. That has it has the Pythagorean theorem all turned into Chinese. Every symbol is Mandarin. And you can decode with you don't have to know Mandarin, you just have to know the Pythagorean theorem. And if you do, you can decode it step by step by step and essentially translate all the Mandarin back into English. Because you know that. Because you share a concept with what that thing represents. Questions?
So you look forward to that so we can wrap up people forever. You can bug EJ shortly. I just don't want to run too much past 8:30. So I'm gonna give a construction update. No doubt all of you know where this is. Yes, everybody knows what this is. This was our roof. It's the old HVAC ducts up on the roof, and they were leaking slightly. Not like the old building leak.
Drip
but,
irrigation.
Drip could have been drip irrigation. We're just throwing water away here, Peter. We don't need any of that stuff.
That look crazy.
So we had to replace these anyway. And since we had to replace these, we thought it'd be a great time to shove like a 18-foot pipe through the roof, because why not do that? And oh, where's my pipe picture? Hang on a second. I added more there we go. That's the pictures I wanted. Apparently Google Albums is not as good as it should be. Anyway, I added these pictures. So I'm sure everybody remembers what this building before we did anything with it. There's this big ass pipe on the north side. Yeah, jogging memories, of course. So we cut down this pipe about 7 years ago, and it's been sitting upstairs. So that's the same pipe right there. And we cut off the duct and found our giant pipe was coming through the ceiling. So we ended up putting this big, like 3-inch pipe up, and then on top of that, we put a 1-inch pipe. Brought her down, resealed it, ran our, I'm sure, construction compliant duct system. It's just a chunk of 2-inch PVC to run the antenna down. And up on top of there is an antenna for a Part 90 radio. This thing. I'm sure Mark, no doubt, somewhere as part of my demonstration. Oh, hey, Mark, can you hear me?
With that.
So the reason for the delay when it keys up, so it keys up and then now we're keying up the thing on the roof, which is the repeater. And the sense of scale is not great here, but this is taller than I am. This is another 10 feet up with a stick of conduit, and then the antenna's way on top of that. So we're able to get this thing up, and tonight's theme is random Google maps. But we're over here. The Culvers over in Cottage Grove Road is over here. Sean was a willing participant in this test, so we set him here with the handheld radio, and I drove over to Culver's to go get cheese curds for him. Hopefully they were good. And while I was driving, I was using the handheld in the car, which means most of the RF was bouncing off the roof and going straight to my brain, which explains a lot. When I got out of the car, though, he said, "Wow, are you on your way back? It sounds great." And I was not indeed on my way back. I was standing in the Culver's parking lot. But this thing works all the way there, which is 11,000 feet. So we got a couple miles, which is good. It should theoretically go farther. We haven't tested any farther to see, but these radios we bought to run Atwood Fest, so we can provide radio walkie-talkies down Atwood Fest. When you get the FCC license, they give you 1 year to fully implement your system. So we had 1 year from last end of July, to put the antenna through the roof and to get it working. So now there's a 50-watt radio on the roof. Marcus was kind enough to provide the 50-watt radio repeater. So a friend of his commissions and decommissions radio gear. So we got an old Motorola. It's two radios, and then they're sharing the antenna, and so that it picks up on one part of it and transmits the other part of it. Just kind of clever. Our next bit of entertainment. No doubt you've noticed the upstairs bathroom now has a hole through the floor. The hole, we had to chip out a bunch of it to get the turn to turn. As Peter demonstrated earlier, shit generally runs downhill, provided in his case has a siphon and doesn't have chunks, but in our case has chunks and no siphon. So we have to core a hole through the floor. So we ran, this is about a 11-inch thick portion of the floor. So we got a core drill that we drilled through. So yeah, scale isn't great here. That's 11 inches through the down. So drill only stalled once. We did let the magic smoke out. However, beaver quality, it kept on ticking and worked just fine afterwards. So apparently we didn't let all the magic smoke out. And then Bob, thanks for his help, has been volunteering once a week to come by and lend a hand. This is the elevator machine room. And so we have the equipment room. I emailed the city inspector and asked if he wanted to come look at 6 studs or if we could keep going. And he said, keep going. They don't like to come and look at little things. So anyway, so we got that approved. Sean, great shot. We got the drywall up and the elevator shaft, and then we rebuilt this deck for the third time for success. It had to get redone a few times because depending on what stage of construction we're at, if we're framing, we need it laid out differently. We're doing the drywall and now with insulation, and then now it's set up for the elevator guy to come and be able to put the rails in. So you'll notice there's a gap at the right side. That's so they can slip the rails down the gap while they're assembling this thing, because this is 14 feet up in the air, so the elevator people want a platform to work off of. So this is the pit now. Just this morning, the interns put drywall up on the right side, so we got drywall up on that side. We need to do drywall on the wall we can't see, which is facing towards us. And for context, for anybody watching later, this is in the kind of corner computer lab area. There's a hole through the wall that'll get wider, and that'll be where the elevator is to go upstairs. So you kind of come in the building, hang a right, and then it's elevators there. The second thing that we did this past week is try to kill Sean with heat stroke. As a secondary effect, though, we insulated part of the upstairs on Saturday. So we went up and cleared up a bunch of space, tarped off 20 feet of the building. So we tarped all the way across and then up 18 feet. And then set up the insulation blower that Scott and Luke built years back, and it still runs. So this thing is taking a bale of compressed cellulose and shredding it all up and turning it into really fine, fluffy cellulose. And then Sean's got a nice video here on the other. Hard to see, but there is stuff pulling out these little pulses. They're like little gray pulses coming through. As the insulation's going out and getting more and more. And so essentially that thing is powderizing the insulation and blowing into the wall. And the idea is anywhere the air leaks, it draws with it insulation, and then it clogs the air leaking spot. So it just keeps shoving mass at it until it stops leaking.
You put a hole first.
We had to put a hole for each cavity. And then in this case, this wall's a little funky and the elevator's a little funky. That'll make more sense here. So here we end up doing is taking this board, which has got a hole in it. It goes over top of the cavity. We leave the top 2 feet of the drywall off. Up here, they'll end up drilling holes because this drywall's complicated. And then, yeah, you feed the tube in. This whole cavity, these are all studs turned on side, so there is no stud bay. It's the whole wall. It's just got a big gap in the middle of it because we had to dodge around the truss. So we set up Baker scaffold. You can see the holes here where the insulation's going in. That's got about an 8-foot hose on it that narrows down the insulation going in to really jam it in the wall tight. So it's called dense packed cellulose. This is the top of the elevator shaft ready to go. And then after it's blowing in, it's stable. So you can take that board down. It's just going to sit there. It actually sat for a long time down here when we first did the first floor before they poured concrete. And so once it goes in, it's pretty tacky. It just kind of wants to stay in place. And I thought I had more slides, but I think that's it. Yep.
Since you're taking it out of the bags and blending it up like that, does it expand more?
Yeah, it fluffs up like crazy. Yeah, so like it's actually interesting. You can take your arm and put it in the fluffed up insulation, and it gets really hot really fast. It does an amazing job of insulating. And so by fluffing it up, you're trapping all the air in all these little tiny micro pockets.
Don't put fiberglass in.
This is all cellulose. It's just paper fiber. No, and you can buy blown in fiberglass. So it's a choice that we're using paper fiber. We don't have to. You can use fiberglass, all sorts of stuff. They used to use vermiculite for a while until they figured out it has asbestos in it. Sometimes it doesn't. So there's a lot of history of fun insulation products.
And the whole point of the cellulose is that you shred it to dissipate it to make it loose so it can actually flow. But we constrict it right before we put it in the wall. That helps densify it, and we're packing it into the wall. And that theory minimizes any settling. Because you're not getting the same density as the bale, but if you are using as many bags as the square footage that you calculate filling, then you should be getting a pretty uniform density, which minimizes.
That's a weird question. Optimally, would you want it to be as dense as it was in the bag or no?
No, there's probably a sweet spot there, right?
Yeah, you want air. Yeah, you just want the air not to move around.
So it's like too dense. So
Because it would conduct.
take a slice of it.
Yeah.
Say, hey, this is sticking pretty good. Set it in the wall.
Good,
That
but
wouldn't
it's
function
all-
as well
It
as.
would not because it's not conforming to their regularities.
Okay,
So what do people do if they don't have that machine?
sort of like fiberglass. It's tightly packed.
Yeah,
It expands when you put it on.
yes, the problem, why this is there's a lot of advantage in this for fiberglass, but the big disadvantage is that you need a builder to rent a machine like this. It's not a DIY process typically. It's a far superior installation.
That looks like the worst polisher cosplay yet.
So
They
these
just
are,
didn't know like what they do in a, say, an attic space. Where it's flowing in, because that's not.
that's
yeah.
loose, that's
That's
loose,
loose.
the rate.
Ultimately, it does settle and compact slightly. It does the same uniform spreading out, but getting around pipes. No, it's
Yeah.
depending on how you blow it.
So does the stuff in the wall, this dense pack, as insulation function better than if you took the same quantity and blew it into your attic? In other words,
Yes.
does the dense pack have a,
Because of the increased resistance to airflow, so you're slowing down the airflow through the wall more in the wall with the dense pack. Then
the air pockets are physically small?
Yeah, and you're packing, you're taking up the void. So cellulose is in an attic will still, if you blow in 16 inches of cellulose in an attic, it'll be 12 in it. It won't be nearly as dense as you pack in the wall, but it'll find that spot where it eventually will keep slowing down. It'll slow down airflow more, so
So-
not nearly as much as it can do.
So if insulation in the attic improves with age as it settles?
I would, in cellulose case, yes. Slightly, I mean, mainly because of the increase. You might be losing R value, but you're probably increasing your just airflow. And airflow is your primary form of compliance.
See it?
That's not what my mom said, she was moving the door.
That's right. Oh, that's really.
Anybody got any other questions?
How long does it take to fill a vertical row?
Well, when Sean's kind of out there just like blazing off like it was the whole
The
weekend.
guy doesn't know how to fuse copper.
If the controller fails, it slows things down a little bit.
But it's still mean.
Fire somehow.
It was, I bet, I mean, we were filling thick walls, pretty tall walls, it was taking. I think to do a 2 foot by 10 foot sectional wall was probably, I don't know.
Yeah, so
Well, it's
Scott said it
really
was
hard.
5, we were doing 5 bales an hour. That's what Scott said, yeah.
I mean, theoretically.
So.
What's next on the construction?
Finish insulating the wall. Sean fucking totally destroyed the
Actually-
insulation blower.
I'm surprised, I didn't see the video of the sparks. I mean,
We didn't get a video of the
left out, like,
sparks.
the best part.
We destroyed the VFD in the blower, but what Sean doesn't realize, I have a whole pallet of them upstairs. So it doesn't fucking matter. We can actually destroy one every time we fire it up.
Did they discover the wrench in good shape?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
threw it real good. It took him all afternoon though.
I
to
just
really
slid it
get
down, I was going back.
one. So yeah, so we want to insulate this wall because then we can do the drywall, finish it, paint it, and then put stuff there and not know that we don't have to move it again. So that's the main goal.
So unless it's.
3 questions per meeting. You're
Okay,
at 3.
unless
So
it's
last
unless it's an absolute emergency, wouldn't it just be easier to walk down to the first floor and use the real bathroom instead of moving a hole?
Well, I mean, the hole will get connected to more holes that turn into flanges that turn into toilet bowls again. So we should be good. Should be good. By code, you have to have a bathroom on each floor, so there's no choice.
Oh, I thought that was just a hole.
Nope. Well, I mean, it is presently a hole, but it goes to nowhere until the pipes are there. So we got the plumber. The plumber right now is tied up on insulation, but when he's done with the insulation, he turns into a plumber.
But don't dense pack.
I can't position.
And now you have to.
Did those filters work okay?
They worked spectacular. In fact, they worked too fucking well.
They really did, yeah.
Because too much air was flowing through, and so I turned off one of the blower because the blowers have selectable motors. So we turned off one of the blower motors to make it a 3 blower system instead of a 4 blower system because it was jetting more air volume than we need. We probably need a blower that produces pressure, not so much damn volume. But those things are convenient, so that's what we
But
got.
the filter actually allowed the blower to do its job. Like this is the first time ever that we've
No clog.
successfully did clog this machine while using it. And we used a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very wondering how it's.
Yeah, the catch is we have there's a whole semi-load of cellulose upstairs. We bought it when it was $5 a bale. I don't know what's that now, but it's like
15.
yeah, it's a lot. So
Look at sell that shit online.
not using you just need to use more paper. Just recycle all your paper, that's where the cellulose comes from. Offices and stuff. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna try to continue to get the really the functional stuff for upstairs. We have to get the bathroom done. The stairs need some railings, the elevator guys need to come and install once we get the drywall done. And then we need to put an HVAC system on the roof. So I either need $100 from everybody in the room to rent the crane. We can watch the crane and sit and like drink margaritas and have them drop the HVAC system on the roof. Or I got a buddy with a really big forklift who will put it on the end of the wall but he can't get it to the middle of the building. So we're all gonna need to get up there, pick the thing up, and carry it on the road. So
Egyptian.
it's all your choices. So we can all.
Spinny slide.
So if you can get it to the we just build
It's a
it.
dichotomy of opinions here. You just throwing money in the problem.
So we're building the ramp. Go straight.
I don't see a zip line, a twirly slide, or a fireman's pole in this anywhere.
What if we get a bunch of quadcopters and then just all tie them?
Oh, see, I like
That's,
that.
we need to get John to coordinate the F-35 to fly over at the right time, and then prop with a jet wash to lift the thing. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna kill the zooms.
Kites.